What is going on, dividend chasers? Just messing about with this board here, just a little hint at what I would like you to do. And I'm going to stop now because this is quite sad and I'm just falling around. Last little punt, and there we go. Right, let me just set up my little station here. Get the light on. Get this light on. Couldn't have the light on because it would reflect off the board and it would ruin the whole pun with what I was intending on. Right, so what we're going to talk about in this live stream is the Navy is getting a brand new warship, the Royal Navy Type 26 frigate. If you simply Google search this, you can see what sort of ship this will actually turn out to be. It is a class of 8 multi-role warships for the Royal Navy. 3 of these are already in build. They are being built by BAE Systems. That is your first stock of note. They're being built by BAE Systems up in Glasgow, in Scotland, in Govan. And the programme is worth 7 billion. Yep, that's £7 billion over the next 10 or 15 years or so while they are under construction. They're going to weigh 7,000 tons, be 150 metres long, and they are going to be roughly 20 metres wide. These are big, quite capable ships. Now, along with this, there's also going to be 9 planned to be built for the Australian Navy and 15 built for the Canadian Navy. They're going to build them in their respective countries, but they are buying the design from the UK's BAE Systems. So that is a total build of 32 warships in this programme. And the £8 billion that I've mentioned is just in the UK planning. So that's not including the money the Canadians and the the Australians are going to spend on their programme. This programme is going to be worth a hell of a lot of money over the next 20 or 30 years or so, or longer. And I'm just going to, in this video, talk to you about where you could potentially invest your money to benefit from this programme. There's also been talk of the Brazilian Navy and, yes, even the US Navy using the design as well. So let's just get this straight. The design will be sold to these navies. They will be built in their own countries. So they're not going to build all 32, or if the US get involved, all hundreds or so up in Scotland. That's simply not realistic. But what will be good is they will be using the same design. They will often use the same sort of engines. They'll often use the same sort of engines, which is really good for all the companies involved. And it means reduced cost overall for these companies. So I've already mentioned that BAE is going to be a massive beneficiary of this project. They're going to be in charge of the entire build, and it's going to be in their facility. It's going to be in their facility, so they're going to be the net beneficiary, and they are, if you want to call it that, they are like the project managers of the whole thing. So it's their show. They've been given the overall contract, and then they're going to give loads of money out in subcontracts to loads of different companies for everything else that goes into these warships. And as you can imagine, they are very, very complex pieces of equipment. So without further ado, BAE contract. The next main contractor is Rolls-Royce. So Rolls-Royce have won the contract for the gas turbines. So you can buy Rolls-Royce on Trading 212 as a stock. So can you BAE. I believe BAE is about £6 a share at the moment, and Rolls-Royce is very similar priced as well. BAE's dividend yield is about 5%, whereas Rolls-Royce is about 1.89, I believe, at the last check. Therma AS is being used has been given the contract to provide these secondary radars to the ship. So they're going to be providing at least 8 radars to the UK ships, both forward and aft, so 16 in total, and then they've won the maintenance contract for after that as well. So that gives them a load of money over the long term as well. The sonar, which is the main purpose of a frigate, really, it's got its air defence radar, but then it's got a sonar is essentially its underwater radar to search for submarine targets. This is being provided by by Thales or Thales, if you want to call it that. It depends on where you come from, how you pronounce it. Now that is listed on the French stock exchange, so you'd have to go through obviously Trading 212 again to get hold of that. Next up is the SATCOMs on board is provided by Skynet and Scott, which is actually part owned by Airbus. So if you wanted to benefit from that, you need to get yourself into Airbus. Definitely available on Trading 212 through the French Stock Exchange again, at roughly about €110 a share at the moment. The missile silos are provided by Lockheed Martin. So the Mark 41 missile silo, where all the missiles are going to sit, or some of the missiles are going to sit, sorry, the long-range cruise missiles, the long-range anti-ship missiles, all of them are going to sit in a silo provided by Lockheed Martin. So they're going to benefit from providing all those silos to 8 different ships, and then potentially the other 24 in the class if the other navies use them as well. That is, Lockheed Martin is the builder of the F-35 program, if you didn't know that, but they stand to benefit from this one. They're available on Free Trade or Trading 212, and their share price is about $380 a share at the moment, with some extra, with a little bit of leeway, and their dividend yield is about 2.5%. Next up is the missiles that the ship will actually carry. They're going to be provided by MBDA, which is a subsidiary of BAE Systems. So again, your BAE shares will get you some money from that side of things. And the other missiles are going to come from Raytheon. The Tomahawk cruise missiles are from Raytheon, so you'd benefit from there. They're available on Free Trade as well on the US stock market. Airbus and Leonardo are also part of the Sea Scepter missile program, which is the ship's primary anti-air defence missile. They all came together with BAE, Airbus and Leonardo, all to produce a different company called MBDA, and they produced the Sea Scepter missile, which is a very, very capable missile. So I've been told that can down targets moving at up to 2,000 miles an hour. The big guns that tend to be at the front, the 5-inch main gun is going to be provided by BAE Systems again. BAE will come up quite a lot as the project lead that it is. Phalanx, the 2 Phalanx weapon systems, the close-in weapon systems, the Gatling guns, they're going to be provided by Raytheon. They're worth a few $100 million a piece, so providing 2 of them per ship means at least 16 sold, and then add that to the other 24 ships in the class. There's at least another uptick in sales right there. So Raytheon shares, as I've already mentioned, are going to be available on the US stock market as it is a US company. Now, next off in the list, we have the ship's helicopters. Always going to have a helicopter operating from these ships. It could either be unlikely, but it could be a Boeing Chinook or Chinook. Boeing owns that, and you can definitely buy Boeing on the stock exchange. I'm a shareholder myself in that company. It's not doing too well at the moment, I might add, but it's currently trading at about $275 a share. So it is heavily discounted due to the ongoing MAX issues, really. But it is important to remember with Boeing that it is such a big company. Not only does it do the commercial airlines that you will have heard of and will most likely have flew on at some point in your lives if you've been on holiday. They also make jets and helicopters and commercial planes, or converted commercial planes for the US military, the Air Force, the Army. The Air Force and the Army and the Navy all use Boeing helicopters. The tilt rotor helicopter that you've seen, the V-22 Osprey, that is a Boeing Bell design. They've come together on it. I'm just trying to point out purely that Boeing is a very, very diverse company. It also puts satellites into space. That part of their business is worth $32 billion, which is more than most companies as a whole, put it that way. So that's the Chinook. The next one is the Wildcat and the Merlin. These are armed with missiles, torpedoes, machine guns, all that side of things. They're both made by AgustaWestland. That was two separate companies. That's for two separate companies once upon a time, Augusta and Westland, but they've now merged many a moon ago, really. They're available to potentially buy on the stock market as well. So Babcock has been given the maintenance contract for the weapon handling system on board, so moving all the rounds around. That's going to be provided by Babcock for all 8 ships. And again, because there's going to be multiple other ships in the program, they could win that contract as well. That's also potentially an extremely good place to put your money. Babcock pays a very healthy dividend yield. It is discounted at the moment. It is down for about £5 or £6 a share, I believe. So that would be a good time to pick up a few before this program really before this program really gets started and the billions and billions of pounds get spent. Steel companies, I'm not sure which steel companies are providing the steel for this program. I'm sure a little bit more research on your part or my part could unearth that information. This is just a really brief overview of the program. So apart from all the companies that are going to benefit, I would just like to, sorry, my internet browser just closed completely then. For no reason whatsoever, it just decided to go completely kaput, and I was just left going, what the hell, what's this? I was just left looking at a blank page for about 20 seconds. So if you saw a bit of a look of confusion on my face, that would certainly be why. Anyway, back to what I was talking about. What was I talking about? I don't really know. This is the joys of being live. Right, what were we talking about? Oh yeah, the economic benefits of building this ship and spending this money. So all these ships are going to be built in the Govan dockyard up in Scotland near Glasgow. So that's an awful lot of workers working flat out each day, getting paid day by day by day by day by day, receiving their wages and then spending it in the local area. So the money is going through them, through to BAE. BAE pays their workers to work and build these ships. The Navy gets a really great ship at the end of it that the government can use to do what it wants. And the people that work for the company, they get well paid, and then they go and pay other businesses and so on, and the money cycle just continues. And there's investors like us that get in the middle of it, that get the benefit of all of that, aside from being taxpayers as well. So we're technically paying for these ships as well. We get the benefit of the Navy getting to use them. The country gets the benefit as a whole for exactly that side of things. I really get distracted when people come and say hello. Hi, Rich Mallory and hi, Growing Dividends. It's great to see you guys again. I'll just respond on here rather than typing. It really throws me when people talk. I thought I was talking to myself for a little bit. I could see people watching. I could see people watching, but I couldn't actually know if they were going to like engage or whatever. But yes, very much hi to you both. So what was I talking about? Yeah, the economic benefits of this £8 billion program being of these warships being built for the Royal Navy. So yeah, everybody in the system gets paid. The government gives the money to BAE to build the ships. BAE give the money to all the companies that we've just talked about: Babcock, Raytheon, Lockheed Martin, BAE themselves, Leonardo, MBDA, Raytheon. All of those companies are set to benefit. So, certain places where you can sort of put your money to benefit from yourself. And we as investors benefit. The country benefits because they're protected by these ships. The workers in the area benefit, and then all the other businesses around the area where the ships are being built, they also get to benefit as well. The need for these ships is really quite obvious. You know, they need to replace the previous class of ships, which is called the Type 23 frigate. These ships are getting quite old now. I mean, some of them are over 20 years old. So it's about time in their life cycle that you naturally replace. Like if you had a car, after 20 years, you're going to replace the car and get a new one because it starts to get tired. It starts to get very expensive to maintain. And technology advances a lot in 20 years, and that's what's happened with these ships. The previous class are now very much at the end, or starting to get to the end of their working lives. So they have to be replaced, really, and it gives the Navy a chance to have a wish list of exactly what it wants to put onto these ships. They tend to say the sort of same. If it's a frigate, it's going to be an anti-submarine frigate, so it's going to go after submarines and be primarily armed in that way. Though a lot of them these days have anti-air missiles on board, as we've discussed. They've got a land attack capability, an anti-ship capability. They can launch their own helos. It's a very multi-purpose, multi-role ship, but slightly geared towards going after submarines when it needs to. I'll just have a look at that little question there, Ridge Mallory. I'm definitely not a financial advisor. Nope, 100% not. I would like to put that out there. If you're buying stocks, you just want to invest in the overall market. If you wanted to invest in the overall market, I would just say it depends on what market you want to, what market you would want to invest in. But I would recommend getting something that spreads across the whole market, really, as you say. So if that were me, I'd go for a ETF, an exchange traded fund that covers the whole market, such as the SP 500. If you quickly Google search that is the top 500 most valuable American stocks, and you really, even as the most laid back investor in the world, you cannot go wrong with investing in that, really. Yes, it will dip every now and again, it'll go up. But if you look at its performance over the last 50 years and beyond, it's done nothing but go up and up and up and up and up and up and up. I would do it. It's literally, the way I would refer to it is, it's like somebody. How to say it? It's like somebody playing with a yo-yo. I don't know if you know what a yo-yo is, but it goes like up and down, up and down. But then that person's walking up the stairs. That's how I've always envisioned it. So they're all going up and up and up and up, and along the same sort of time, the yo-yo is going like that. So the stock prices are going up and down, but gradually they're getting more valuable and more valuable and more valuable. And then there's a big crash like coronavirus, and then it does that and wiggles and wiggles and wiggles and goes back up again. So if it were me, it depends on how much money you have. If you were going to if you were wanting to invest across the whole American market, I'd look at the SP 500 or the NASDAQ 100, which has got the FANG, Team FANG in there, which is Facebook, Amazon, Google. All your big tech stocks are wedged in that NASDAQ 100. So if you wanted growth without any dividends, put your money in there and just hold on for the long term. But please, like you say, do your own research. The SP 500 does actually pay a dividend. It's been paying dividends for a long time. I think it's actually quite close to becoming a dividend aristocrat, which means it's paid dividends for 25 years or more. There are other funds out there, though. You can go, you can reduce down to like by sector. So you can buy an ETF in the healthcare sector, the industrials, military sectors, just the financial sectors. You can spread it out all like that. And if you were going to the UK, I'd say look at a FTSE 100 tracker, something along those lines, in terms of either the high dividend one or the, depending on what you're after, growth or dividend. I'd certainly look at one of them. Or you could go for a global ETF that goes all the way across some of the biggest companies in the whole world stock markets, basically. And then you could even look at the European stocks, get an ETF there, or Japanese, any country that's got a major stock exchange. You can get an ETF that covers their biggest companies in that market, and you couldn't really lose too much money on that. I mean, obviously, please do your research, but as long as you don't panic sell and you hold on for the long term, if you look at the previous performances of all these ETFs, they tend to, it's relative. So if the market's down as a whole, then the market is down and everybody's lost, well, not lost money, but everybody's portfolios are in the red. And down as a whole, then the market is down and everybody's lost, well, not lost money, but everybody's portfolios are in the red. And can invest their money. I can't tell if I'm connected. Am I still connected? My Wi-Fi did drop then. It gave me a warning. I think I'm still connected. I'll just drop a little message here to check that I am. Yeah, I think we're good. I think we're good. What a terrible internet connection. Right, yeah, so definitely, Ridge Mallory, go for SP500, the NASDAQ, or an ETF that covers the FTSE 100, the European stock markets, or something like that. I'd keep away from China or Japan right now because they're massively affected by coronavirus. And that would nicely lead me on to Growing Dividends, who is, do you think it's going to get out of hand? I'm not sure if it's going to get out of hand in the UK, actually, if I'm honest. I'm not particularly worried. I feel for people that get the virus, but for most of us, it's not going to do. It's going to be like getting the flu. I mean, it'll suck for 2 weeks, I suppose, but eventually you'll recover, and most people will get a mild flu or less and recover. So while the stocks are going absolutely mental about it, I'm not really sure. I think, like, I am happy to buy the dip. Like, I'm glad the markets are crashing, but I was an opportunist, shall we say, when the market did crash or fall through the floor about a week ago. I used the opportunity. I only had about £400 spare, £400, £500 spare, but I literally got that and folded it into the companies that were taking the biggest dip. At that time, I picked up Visa at a 15% discount. I got UPS at a 12% discount, Carnival Cruises at 26% discount, and then Shell is at a 21% discount. So it to me, you're getting these, as long as you're planning to hold these, you're not a day trader and you plan to buy and hold these stocks for the next 10, 20, 30 years, like it's a no-brainer to buy them. And then you've got the dividends for 20 years and the stock price is bound to recover. Eventually this coronavirus is going to fizzle itself out, or everybody's going to have it and then recover from it. Yes, sadly, some people are going to pass away, and that's awful. But what you've got to ask is, would these people have still struggled if they got the flu or something like that? If you get what I mean, would these people still have passed away if they suffered from complications from getting the normal influenza flu that goes round year on year goes round every year? I read something somewhere that said that there's a 300,000 people a year die from just normal influenza, and yet coronavirus has killed like 3,000 people. But why such a disparity between them? I know you can do nothing about influenza because that's already out there and it's gone. But like China has almost over torn itself apart over trying to contain this virus, and it's been a good thing that they have because they've contained it largely to their own country. Although, if you look at the news today in the UK, there's about 40 new cases here now. I think I'm not sure whether we'll get to the point where it will just go and we'll just lose control, and it'll just be a case of you get it. Please let people know, take the time off work or whatever, and try not to give it to anybody else. That might be the same as just having a cold. You can't help. Naturally, humans touch each other. We touch door handles, we sneeze, we have food together. You know, you're in close proximity to people. Imagine having coronavirus on the tube in London. You know, I'm not trying to panic anybody there by any means, but one person on a tube in London breathing on everybody, touching and grabbing the handholds, touching the ticket barriers, leaving a can of Coke somewhere. It's just gonna get massive. I don't know whether it'd be worth the economic damage to start trying to contain it and shutting down cities. I think that'd just be pointless. You might as well just let people have time off work to recover, and don't give it to absolutely everybody. But I don't know. It's a tough one to call, but I think we'll be fine no matter what happens. If it gets contained or it gets held until we get to the summer and then the summer burns it up, then good. If it doesn't get contained, what's the worst that's going to happen? Everybody's going to get the flu temporarily for a little while. The only people you really need to worry about and the people that need isolating are the people with pre-existing health conditions and the elderly. Them are the people to really, really look at, and don't go and visit if you're feeling a little bit dodgy. Or, you know, me personally, if I felt that I had a cough or I had anything like a fever, I would definitely not be going anywhere near my grandparents, my nan, because you wouldn't want to risk giving it to them. Naturally, people can just pick things up from anywhere. You know like I said, you know what the human race is like. What have you got there? I'm still a couple of minutes behind. I don't know if you've caught up, Graham. Know your name. We talk so much through social media. Like, I'm Josh, by the way. I don't know if you knew that, but my name's Josh. I feel like we should probably be on name terms by now. And my Wi-Fi has decided to go down again. Any chance? Wi-Fi. Terrible Wi-Fi connection. Fucking sucks. Right, what was I doing? Where was I going? What was I saying? I'm really terrible at this live feed stuff, I swear to God. Were you actually doing trading, dude? Were you doing day trading? I've never done that. I wouldn't know where to start. I would just chuck all my money out the window if I do that. But I really, kudos to you. I mean, why are you stopping? Were you just losing too much money? Or, I mean, I wouldn't even know where to start. So fair play to you for at least giving it a go. Like, all I'm ever going to be, I think, is a dividend value investor or a dividend growth investor, and I might chuck the odd speculative stock out there. So, I mean, for example, I'm invested in Virgin Galactic the other day. I looked when it was $10 a share, and I really, really wish that I just took the punt, because I was going to, and then at the last second I had a little birdie on my shoulder going, no, don't, it's going to die a death, space travel isn't going to be a thing. And all of a sudden it spiked to nearly $40 or $50 a share. So when all the markets crashed this time last week or whenever it was, Virgin Galactic went down to $24, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to join. I'm going to put my money into it, and I'm going to just hold it. It's not a dividend payer. It's just purely speculative. But I can envisage space travel becoming a thing in the next 10 or 20 years. And I think when the company actually starts taking people to the moon, or not to the moon, what am I about, but to space, and starts orbiting and whatever, and people can actually pay them money, go, come back and be like, yeah, post selfies and all that sort of stuff with their phones in space. I think that'll make space travel a really big thing. So I might even, whenever I get some money that I wouldn't mind losing or whatever, I might just chuck more into Virgin, because I think it's quite a good thing, and it's the only publicly traded one you can have. Because space, like, you can't buy shares in any of the others at the moment, and SpaceX is part of like Elon Musk's thing. You could buy Tesla, I suppose. That is another company I keep meaning to try and get hold of, but it is just way too expensive. I can't spend £500 just on one share at the moment. Not a bloody chance. Not a chance at all. Right, you're 2 minutes behind. I'm going to be giving up the day trading. Right. Shall I get back on track to where I was? So I believe we were at the need for having this warship. I'll go all the way back round to where I was. So I believe we're on about the need for this warship and what it will actually do for the country. So it gives the government the ability to send a warship to anywhere in the world, to provide a presence, and if need be, to do damage to the enemy, so to speak. Or, well, I don't want to say kill people, but it's a warship. That's in essence what a warship does: deliver violence to the enemy if it really has to. But there's so much more to it than that. There is that side of things, and yes, it will escort the aircraft carriers that the UK has. It will escort the aircraft carriers that the UK has as its primary means, and it will go after submarines, and it will chase submarines off, and if need be, blow submarines up or whatever. But there's also the case for just being a presence in the area, just being that reassuring presence to, like it or not, the UK did have a massive empire, and some remnants of that are still quite dependent on us for their defence or whatever. So it'd be nice. Some of them will be quite happy to have a UK warship come and patrol through their waters and give that reassuring presence when there's been trouble or whatever. Prime example of that would be like the Gibraltar or the Cayman Islands, or the Falkland Islands is a big one, and the Falklands War and all that side of things. The other thing to think about is, what do you do when there's a humanitarian crisis, or you need to evacuate people out of a country, and you need an armed guard to do that because there's no airports or whatever. You're going to send a warship. Humanitarian relief, what better thing to have than to be able to send a ship full of stores and supplies that has its own indigenous helicopter, so we can maintain it, fuel it, send supplies out with it. We've got a pool of manpower on board of 250 capable, well-trained, fit people, and then you can produce loads of water, bottle it up, and help out people that way. There's nothing better than seeing that deployed for real and actually helping people out. That, nobody thinks about that sometimes. There's the hard, straight-lined edge of what a warship does, which is firing missiles, bombs, bullets at the enemy and doing damage and all that side of things. And they're playing the war games with the Russians or whoever's playing the enemy that day, the Iranians recently as well, so to speak. But also there's the softer side of things, just engaging with local or international partners, NATO, people that we have like defence ties with most of the world, to be fair. The Americans, French, the NATO, Australia, Japan, still have dependencies in Hong Kong, Singapore, all these places that used to be part of the empire and are still part of the Commonwealth. India, the Falklands, we go down there a little bit. There's all that sort of thing that a warship does that just people always just think straight down the line, well, it's a warship, it's for doing just war stuff. And there's a whole lot to it than that. There's not at the moment there hasn't been a major war for quite some time, and that is a good thing. But you can use your warships to do other things in the meantime. That's another thing for the coronavirus side of things, is the military could potentially get involved in that, like, and help the police out, because I don't know if you saw on the news, but the police could be preoccupied in doing other things, being sick off work themselves, ill with coronavirus. So the military could be called in to do that, and that's what we could do. They're not going to deploy a great big warship to come and do it, but they could certainly use the military staff that are on board to give a hand in that sort of way. And yeah, so lastly, I just want to talk about the potential of this program in terms of, as I've already said, the 8 ships are being built for the UK Navy. 8 of them fully equipped, missiles, Gatling guns, radars, the whole lot. And then the design, so the economic benefit of that is going to stay in the UK. But the design is being sold to the Australians, who are building 9 ships, and the Canadians, who are building 15 ships of their own. And there's been muted talk that the Brazilian Navy are looking at them. The New Zealand Navy usually follow whatever the US Navy buys as its frigate. So the New Zealand Navy could potentially build their own or place an order as well and take the design. I doubt they would be built in the UK. They would probably build them in New Zealand or in Australia, because it's just a closer part of the world. And there's even talk, and this is really, really surprising, but there's even talk of the US Navy using them. Now, that is a big thing, because usually Americans stick with their own design. They've got huge budget, massive capability, but they actually want an off-the-shelf design. Sadly, I think the Type 26 might be a little bit too late for that, because they wanted a design that was already in the water. So that means they might have to use, I think there's a European design that they were looking at, and I think there was one of their own designs and a European one that was basically in the water already, and that was one of the stipulations of the program. But then somebody raised the point that, well, we're closely allied with America, so is Canada, so is Australia, so is New Zealand, so is Brazil a little bit too. One class ship. And I think that's given them food for thought, that they could do that, just slightly delay their program, get the design off BAE Systems, which is a common thing. Like, friendly militaries exchange designs on all sorts of stuff all the time. I mean, how the UK's military deterrent is nuclear deterrent is American made by Lockheed Martin. The nuclear missiles are made by Lockheed Martin. That's just something. They're not controlled by America. Let's get that out there right now. Been reassured of that in the past, but they are made and then bought by the UK. The missiles are American, yeah, or made by an American company. But yeah, back to my original point, if the Americans got involved in that, that program has the ability to be absolutely massive. And all the companies involved with that, you know, these countries aren't likely to change who they use too much. I mean, if you've got Rolls-Royce engines in it, why would you swap Rolls-Royce engines for a different brand that it wasn't designed for in that ship? So that means Rolls-Royce is probably likely to win the contract for the Canadian ships, the Australian ships. Them are just the ones that are dead set, properly ordered right now. But then if they won the American ones, then that's a huge benefit to the to the whole of the UK, to be fair, because it makes our ships that much cheaper, better value for money for the taxpayer. And when it comes to spare parts, there'll be loads of spare parts out there, so they'll be cheaper as well. So it will actually save the UK tax money, the taxpayer, the government, the MOD, and then eventually the Navy some money, which is always a good thing, so you can spend it on something else. And I think after that little jut off into talking about coronavirus and talking about the ETF that you could potentially look at for buying something across the whole market. I think I'm getting towards the end of my video. There was one other thing I wanted to say. Oh yes, so I've filmed today and yesterday my update video for my free trade portfolio and my trading 212 portfolio, which is where my Virgin Galactic stock is going to be bought in, added in, and where my free trade portfolio is at right now as well. Because I've added some money into it, it actually looks like it's just gone up from 3,000 to 3,300, which was true, but I had like £200 or £250 worth of gains that have gone out the window in the meantime. So you'll have to tune in and have a look at that video, because it's quite funny to see the little straight through the floor and then a little bit of a recovery. However, I am still £50 down now, or maybe even more than that. I can't even look at my phone. I don't know where it is, but I'm probably between £50 and £100 down still. But I don't care. It means my dividend yield is much higher. It means that my yield on cost will be better over time, and it means that in the long term, I will have bought that for so much cheaper than what it will be worth in 10 or 20 years' time. And that is that. Yeah, please, if you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do. Please check out my other videos as well if you haven't already. I have absolutely loads of them out now. I'm a bit of a video producing machine, and that's only going to continue, and I'm just going to double up on the videos left, right and centre. Don't know where I get my ideas from. Who knows, eh? Right, I will catch you around in the next video. Cheers for watching. I believe if it's still YouTube watching Ridge, Mallory and Growing Dividends, that's really great. Thank you so much for sticking around. It's been really good talking to you guys, and I'll catch you around in the next video. Bye-bye. And bye-bye, because I can't miss the button.